All right. Happy April 2nd. All right. Didn't want to post anything up on April Fool's Day. Maybe you think I was just fooling with you. Wanted to quick get back in touch with you. I know I left you a brief, probably a terse message on Friday as I was finishing up on all of the essays that you've written, and I know I reminded myself to say thank you for the work that you did. So. But I did forget to mention that if you have any questions about the comments and suggestions that I've made on your essays that I attached a Word file usually with comments. So if you open up Word and go to markup or underneath revision, you'll see all the comments and all the links and stuff that I gave you. Please just get in touch with me. Send me an email or what have you. Hopefully my remarks are clear enough that they'll help you steer a way forward. And as you work on those and finish those up and you're happy with those, go ahead and submit those as the revision essay. Remember, it requires a separate document to be attached, and you can just, actually if you want to, you can just go ahead and attach it either at the front of the paper or the back of the paper. It doesn't really matter to me. With just some feedback and reflection on your revision process, what you learned from that. Hopefully that was helpful to you. I wanted to, I was in the mood to get in touch with you too. I've been so impressed with this class. You guys have been pretty awesome, as a matter of fact. It's been a delight to read your comments. I wanted to make just a few call-outs. I was really grateful, Izzy, about your outrage in the discussion about Mary Daly, and then the sex bots video at the end of it. I just want to say thank you for your outrage there. I know you acknowledged the humorous intent of the piece, and that, but I'm glad you took the satire seriously, as it really goes to the heart of some of our concerns about technology and its effect on our ability to enjoy intimacy with others. So we will have to be able to talk about the difference between sex and intimacy, and how sex may not be an exclusively human need, as my son is beginning to learn. Along with everything poops, every living creature has sex, but humans enjoy intimacy. And that's a much harder concept to define or limit, thankfully. And Sage, I wanted to say thanks so much for your sort of an insightful comment you made. I hadn't even thought about it in terms of the blind king watching Arjuna struggle. And your comment was something to the effect that the king must see the consequences of his decision to go to war. And it had never occurred to me before that it was both sort of a fortunate turn of events that he had a seer who could see everything that was happening on the battlefield and were able to translate to the king. And I thought that was sort of a magical sort of device, and it never occurred to me that it was a necessary thing for the king to be able to be forced to see the war that he had started. So thank you for that. And Sebastian, thanks for mentioning Socrates in the Tao Te Ching discussion too. Your insight about the value of knowing our limitations, our lack of knowledge, that it sometimes is important, if not more important than what we know. I completely agree with you there. I did sort of fall away from agreement with you at the end of your discussion, and several of you sort of made this sort of notion about the Indian fellow's a video about sort of a relativistic moral perspective that might be available somehow, right? That everyone has different cultures and different values, and they all have value, and there's no way of sort of determining what the best value is, if there's a better value. And I don't agree with that. And I'm sure you don't either, really. Because if that was the case, then there's no way of making any kind of normative judgments whatsoever, right? We have to be able to say that one thing is better than another, that some kind of life is better than another kind of life, right? And so, I mean, there are lots of different sort of moral lenses we can bring to make those kinds of critiques. We can ask this about this value or this action. Does it bring more pleasure, more pain for humans in the world? There's a utilitarian moral lens. Or we can ask, is this some kind of action or value that we can place some sort of universal law, some moral imperative that Kant would have us agree to? In other words, we have a duty to act in some kind of way in all circumstances? That's another way we could sort of make some sorts of judgments, or at least begin to criticize a moral perspective. I have to admit that I am very greatly influenced by the school of American pragmatism, and I love some of Richard Rorty's ideas about some concepts that we might use, such as the term useful or interesting, rich. Is the value interesting? Does it give us some way of making our lives more interesting? Does it add depth? Does it add richness to our lives? Is it useful? That's kind of along the utilitarian lines, but using some different kinds of concepts to think about, does it work? Does this really work for humans? Are we the kinds of creatures that this law or this value works for, right? And that's a practical or a pragmatic lens to make judgments about moral values. And so I just wanted to make a few of those comments and everything. I do sort of have my own idealistic ambitions and hopes and dreams that the world will be greatly improved by all of your efforts in your lives and professions, and I hope you try your best to lead us towards more peace in the world, right? More peace, less poverty, more pleasure, less pain, perhaps, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to use that as our guides and our judgments. I know there's already a sort of resistance among tech companies, employees who are resisting taking Department of Defense contracts and using the new advanced technologies for weapons of war. And so hopefully it won't be a race between how we can become different kinds of humans, different than what we've always been. So we've always been very warlike creatures. Hopefully we'll be able to avert those tendencies in some ways and use technology to help limit our warlike characteristics. Maybe that's the way. If we can find devices and technologies and algorithms and decision-making processes that are less warlike, maybe we'll be able to survive. Right? Well, so on that grim note, I just want to say thanks again. I hope you're enjoying this class. I hope you're enjoying each other's comments and discussions as much as I am. And keep up the good work, and I'll get back in touch with you then in another week. I'm looking forward to watching your presentations, and I'm going to try to figure out some way of posting a bunch of those up so that we can kind of all see, each other's talks and stuff like that. All right. So thanks again. Have a great week.